welcome back. We are ready to talk about cushions for Aunt Bee, and we're going to start by taking a look at these old cushions. So they're kind of a strange style. There's all sorts of ways that you can create a cushion. These we would call a center seam or possibly a knife edge because that welt cord is right in the center, which is sort of a strange choice for a chair like this. So we're going to make a change to that, and we did a lot of thinking about what kind of a cushion that we should teach. A lot of times on a chair like this, you would see what is called a boxed welted cushion, where we would have welt cord top and bottom. We decided we're going to teach the most straightforward basic cushion style we can, which is a boxed plain seam cushion. It's going to give us the opportunity to pattern our cushions from scratch and walk you through that whole process, and you're going to end up with a really nice looking cushion with the least amount of struggle. This one's a little different, but we still have all the parts we need. So the part that you actually sit on, we're going to call that the top panel. And of course, we have a top and bottom panel. But we usually just shorthand that to the cushion top panel. Now what you have along the side is a boxing. And this is what we're going to create on all the edges of our cushion, is just a plain seam boxing. So it is squared off, but there's no cord in there like we have in the front. One of the advantages of that, really nice, is that you don't have a cord here to catch crumbs and dust and hair if you find that that happens in your home. It stays nice and clean. Now around the back, we have the zipper panel. And we're going to do ours just very similar to that, just as simple as can be. So we have a really easy way to get our cushion in and out. I want to show you when we are figuring out how wide we want our boxing to be, we need to consider how wide our foam is going to be. So we looked at our chair and we determined that we want to put a 4-inch foam into our cushion because that'll give us the finished height that we want of about 17 to 18 inches in a chair for that seat height. If our foam is 4 inches, we actually want our boxing to finish a little smaller. They went 3.5 inches. Sometimes I even go 3 1/4. Just to snug it up. And if we go, a lot of times people think they want 4-inch foam, and so they go 4-inch boxing because they don't want it to look over plump. But you need that insert to be bigger than your cover in order to keep everything full. So you can actually see by the time this got wrapped, we're at about 5 inches with the foam and the wrap, and it looks just right with a boxing of 3.5 inches to keep everything full. I almost always pattern my top panels from the frame of the chair instead of using the old cushions, which can be stretched or distorted. It's just the best way to make sure that we get a perfect fit. In this case, of course, we have to pattern from the frame because we're changing the cushion style. You can use whatever sturdy remnant you happen to have on hand, but step one is to take a scrap of fabric and trim it and clip it until it lies flat in the deck space of our chair. Next, we're going to grab a regulator. This is the long, flattened needle used to regulate padding in traditional upholstery, and it works like a charm for patterning cushions. The planes of an upholstered chair aren't nearly as flat and straight as they first appear. Our inside arm and back curve away into the frame, and what we really need to capture is where our cushion is going to make contact 4 inches up from the deck. The regulator does a great job of helping us drop that information straight down onto our remnant fabric. Likewise, the front edge of our chair isn't nearly as squared off as it initially appears. Again, our regulator is going to do a great job of helping us mark a nice straight line. Cushions are more art than science, and there's a lot of variation in what's considered a perfect fit and finish. So look at what other upholsterers are doing, talk to your client, and trust your own judgment. we have a pattern we are happy with, we're going to go ahead and use that to cut our actual cushion top panels. In upholstery, most of us use a very simple 1/2 inch seam allowance, so that's what we're going to add on. And if you remember earlier, when we cut out all our fabric, I did go ahead and rough cut what I thought I would need for my cushion. My label indicating seat, telling me that that's going to be the front, and I'll lay my pattern right on top of there. Let's talk about, so this has the salvage on there, right, where the machines will grab that to pull it through as the fabric is milled. And I tend to leave this on if I'm going to be pulling with it. If it's in there for a handle, I can use it for an inside arm, something like that, where it's probably going to get trimmed off or covered over. But for a cushion, I really want to stay back from there because you can see that that edge is going to be a little wavy. So we will start back a little further so you get all that beautiful, clean, nice, even greenhouse fabric. I'm going to grab some chalk. Okay, so I have a 1/2 inch tack strip here that I can use as a guide if I'm unsure about where my 1/2 inch is at. Once you make enough cushions, you're going to feel pretty comfortable coming in here and eyeballing that seam allowance. But you do want to be, since we went to all that trouble to create a nice accurate pattern, we want to take the time to do an accurate job following it. Okay, let's talk about a plan for our boxing and our zipper. Before we dive in, I want to let you know there's a lot of math for cushions and there's not a whole lot of hard and fast rules. So I'm going to walk you through what I think is a good plan for this cushion, but just know that every cushion is going to be a little different. One of the first things that we have to decide is how far we want our zipper to come around. And we could keep it just in the back panel, but then it's going to be hard for us to get these big ears in that itty bitty zipper. So usually with a T cushion, you're going to see that zipper come around the side, so we have a little bigger opening. So maybe we'll go about there. That doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want to kind of stay back from the corner just so we don't have everything kind of piled up in one spot. Okay, so that's about 5 inches in. I'm going to say that our zipper is going to be roughly 29 inches. Now the boxing would go the rest of that way. And you'll notice this is not a very accurate way to measure my perimeter, but it's going to be good enough for what we need. For both zipper and boxing, we'll add 6 inches to the length. Our width, which we decided to finish at 3 1/4, becomes 4 1/4 once we add a 1/2 inch top and bottom for seam allowance. We only need to cut 1 piece for our boxing, but we need to cut 2 pieces for our zipper panel. We have all our pieces cut, so we're ready to start sewing. We have our top and bottom panel. We have our boxing cut to the length we discussed. And then I want to show you, we have our zipper already made. We're not going to cover that in this video. If you do want to walk through on how we created this particular zipper style, which is quite simple, you can look for my separate video on how to do that. So we're going to hop over that. But what I do want to point out is that a lot of times people are afraid of that zipper and they want to put it in last. But really, creating the zipper panel is one of the very first things that we're going to do, because once that's created, then we just get to treat it like it's another piece of boxing that happens to have a zipper in the middle of it. Let's go put these pieces together. Our first step is to join our zipper panel and our boxing into one big continuous loop. When I sew these pieces together, I like to backstitch when I start, backstitch across the zipper with a little extra tab of fabric, and backstitch when I stop. That may seem kind of excessive, but if anything splits here and our zipper tab goes missing, someone is going to be really bummed out. Next, we're going to put together our loop and our top panel, starting at the center back, which should be marked on both pieces with a small notch. Now I have a reference for when I want to line that up later. Get right to the corner, drop our needle, and turn our corner. So bring our edges back together, and on we go. Once the back of our cushion is started, we'll move to the front, which should also be marked center with a notch on both the boxing and the top panel. The whole process is pretty much the same, except we'll have some extra corners to mark because remember, our cushion is T-shaped. We also have a small curve that we'll need to deal with, and there are lots of little tips and tricks for how to get around here, but the main thing I can offer you is to try and keep those edges together without stretching either the boxing or the top panel. So now let's look at when we get here. You can see the extra fabric that we have, and this is why we weren't super critical about our measurements, because whatever extra we have, we are just going to fold it and sew across it. So what will happen is that we've created a little pocket on this side that our zipper can disappear into. And if that pocket's a little deeper or a little shallower, that's going to be okay. So we aim for about the overage that we figured, but it doesn't have to be a specific measurement. We'll just take whatever left and drive right over. There we go. See where we're going with it? Our corners, got our pocket. Things are looking up. So as we do the second side, we're going to do that whole process again, but we don't have to stop and notch things. We just have to check as we go that our notches are lining up and adjust to bring them together if they need a little encouragement. Let's say it that way. Sometimes they do. Watch where our first notch is coming. Good. And you see, they're a little short, I'm just going to kind of, as I'm coming up to them, I'm going to make sure that they line up. If they're wildly off, then I know I need to stop and take a look at what's going on. Hopefully, they all land just where we want them to land.